So you think you want to be in the MMA media space? Are you ready for long, punishing hours? Are you ready for tight deadlines? Are you ready for every time you hit publish, a bunch of people are going to say mean things about you and be in your DMs? Today, I am talking to a guy who is just as deranged as I am and operates in this space voluntarily of his free will. He joins me right now. His name is Dylan Rush. Dylan, thank you for being here. I love your get up, man. And I was practicing this. I have to say, dude, I feel like a nest for my head. I feel freaking fantastic. I don't know where this look has been my entire life. I need to incorporate this. Your thoughts? What do you think?
I love it. It looks good. I like the matching UFC hoodie with the UFC hat. The backdrop is great, but yeah, I like the getup, man.
Dylan, first and foremost, I love your work, and you've been in this space for a long time. I know you've been in other publications. Now you're in the Cageside Press, and that's a prestigious organization. I know quite a bit about them. I know some of your colleagues as well. What's wild about you is you've really only been in this space for the past year or so, but you keep churning out and pumping out all kinds of amazing, really interesting content that I like. And I don't say that cheaply because I'm kind of an asshole and there's a lot of things I don't like about MMA content, but you're out here and you're crushing it, man. So, hey, great job for the past year. You've been crushing it. Tell me, like, what has this first year been like for you in this space?
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate all the kind words. I know you're kind of an asshole, so I really do think you're being honest when you say that. So I appreciate it. Uh, this past year, it's been like a year and maybe 3 months now. It's been the best year in 3 months of my life, hands down. I love it. Every event is my favorite event. I always tell my mom this was the best event ever. This is the best event. This is my favorite interview I've ever done. It just keeps on getting better and better. I'm really passionate about this stuff. I think that shows through my work. I hope it does. People tell me it does sometimes. Uh, yeah, and I just hope I never lose this passion. Uh, it's just been great, man. There's no complaints. Like I haven't made a ton of money doing this. I haven't reached a whole bunch of notoriety, fame, but just like the community has been great. It's such a when I first started, I thought it was like going to be so hard to meet people. It's just such a small community. It's so tight knit. Everyone has been really nice. You do get some hateful comments sometimes, as you mentioned, but just I really feel like I was welcomed in with open arms. I've really immersed myself within the sport, and yeah, pretty much I love it, man. I've been loving it.
If you're anything like me, and I know, like, every even if you're anything like me, like you'll get a DM like this from time to time, and it's usually from a person who's just getting ready to start out. And I get this question pretty often. It's like, what are some of the things that you did to like get your start in this industry? Could you give me some tips for how to start out? Now, I have like my three or four in my mind, but I'd love for you to share yours. Like for any new person who sees what we do and they see you, they see, wow, this Dylan Rush kid, like he's really awesome. I like his content. It's inspired me to put my own MMA content out there. If there's any new person out there, like what are maybe like your top three things that of advice that you'd give anybody who's looking into getting into uh, what we do?
Well, the first one would be the most cliche one. I would say consistency is key. How I first began to grow is when I first started this account, I would go sometimes 3, 4 days without posting, without putting anything out. Now it's like I don't remember the last day that I didn't post on my Instagram. I don't remember the last event that I didn't provide coverage for, whether I be sitting on my couch or sitting in the crowd in person. So consistency above all else. Content is king. You got to push out whether it be subpar content. I like to call my content subpar. You're telling me it's pretty good, so I appreciate it. But whatever the content may be, also most importantly, original stuff. I know you've gotten this from Alex McHugh. I talked to the Schmo and Mike Bond. They told me you got to be different. You got to be yourself. You you got to put out original stuff. You can't. I see so many pages out there just screenshotting MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting's post, just posting it as their own, and it's like you're not getting anywhere like that. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to get you anywhere. And I learned that early on. I didn't really know the space too well. The first couple of weeks I was posting, I was just screenshotting their stuff and posting it. I got a stern talking to from a couple of the guys over there. I learned my lesson. So that's definitely a lesson you got to learn early on. Original stuff is the best stuff. As for like interviews, what I realized, and I don't know why it is, and Bellator people tell me, like the PR people, they tell me like you're the only one that does this, and I don't know why people haven't picked up on it. Just because it's an individual sport. I know this isn't a team sport like football or basketball or baseball. Just because it's an individual sport, when they walk in the cage, they're alone. It's a one-on-one fight. It doesn't mean that they say it takes a village to be here. It takes a community. They have so many people supporting them, helping them day in and day out. And they love to talk about people. They love to talk about who's helped them get there. So at these press conferences and even on these Zoom interviews, I always ask a couple questions about your teammates, about your manager, about this, about that. They love to talk about it because they're always just asked about themselves. And some people love to talk about themselves, some people don't. So it's good to incorporate that. And that's another way I kind of grew a little bit. Not that I did it in a deceitful way, like I'm going to do this so I grow. It just kind of happened organically. But I would ask people, fighters, Bellator fighters, UFC fighters, I would ask them about their training partners. And they'd mention an amateur or a guy like this or a guy like that. And I would post the clip, tag the amateur would follow me, I'd interview that guy, then all the teammates in the gym would see both interviews, they start following and it starts building up. You can't just shoot straight to the top. As fun as that sounds and as perfect as that sounds, you got to lay the groundwork. So doing what you do, interviewing amateurs, interviewing pros that aren't necessarily in the UFC or Bellator or PFL, it goes a long way towards eventually getting the top guys, if that's what you want to get. But either way, just interview. My whole thing is I interview anybody with a pulse. Anybody that wants to do an interview, I'll interview him. When I was at XC 2 months ago, this dude, he was in jail the last 10 years. He gets out of jail. He's been into extreme. He goes to Extreme Couture. He's only been there a couple of weeks. And he's telling me this story. And I was like, holy shit, let's do an interview. He's 0-0. He's not even an amateur fighter yet. He plans to be, but I interviewed that guy. It was one of my favorite interviews. So you never know what you're going to get. And yeah, just do a bunch of work, man. Just interview everybody, write articles about everyone. That's how you kind of make it in this space, I feel like.
What has been the most challenging part of your journey thus far? Like, I always feel like we all hit a wall at some point, or there's something that happens or a series of events that happens in this space, and it gets you to think, like, how bad do I really want to do this? Because this isn't easy. Like, as fun as it is, it's hard. It's hard to be in this space for a prolonged amount of time. Burnout can be real. There are deadlines. There are MMA events that happen every week. And, just like you, like, I have a life outside of this. I have a regular job. For me personally, I have a regular job outside of this. I'm married. I have 2 kids. Like, trust me, there are other things sometimes that I really want to do. But this isn't about me. This is about you. And I wanted to ask you, for you, what has been the most challenging part about this for the past
Well,
few?
you kind of just said it. You hit the nail on the head. The easy response would be like the money side. Like there doesn't seem to be an easy route to making money doing this necessarily. I mean, there are definitely people who have made it. There are definitely ways to make it, but it's not easy, as you say. It's pretty hard. But that's not my answer for this. I think the biggest challenge for me, as you mentioned, is the work-life balance. Before I started doing this, I would do a million different things every day. I would hang out with all these people, do all this stuff. Like last night, Saturday night, every Saturday night, there's UFC or there's some type of event. All my friends go out. They ask me, come on, come out. Da, da, da. I got articles to write, man. I got work to do. I got to cover this. And I'm not like sad about it because I love this stuff. I'm passionate about it. I want to be working on a Saturday because, I enjoy it. And yeah, but, certain times, sometimes there's 2 days, 3 days where I've barely left the house. And I feel like I'm outside because I'm interviewing people and talking to people and going back and forth with people online. And it feels like I talked to a million people today and it's 4 p.m. and I realize, wow, I haven't said a word out loud yet today. And it feels like I have, but I haven't. So yeah, that's the biggest struggle for me. I've only been doing it for a year. So I'm going to figure it out as time goes on. But yeah, finding a balance between work and everything else. Like when I talked, you're married with kids. I bet, you struggle with it as well, as you mentioned. Mike Bond, he told me he had a girlfriend. And my reaction to it was like, wow, I can't imagine having a girlfriend doing this stuff. Like I can't imagine having the time for both. You're doing it with a wife and kids. So much respect to you. That's awesome. But even just me as a college student having classes and then having this and then trying to maintain at least somewhat of a social life that I used to have. So that's definitely been the biggest challenge for me, is just like balancing it all. But I'm going to learn as I go.
This part of the podcast is brought to you by my friends at Uriah Faber's A1 Combat. Later on this month, on April 28th, there's going to be an amazing title fight that's going to be taking place between 2 really high-level guys. This is a card that I'm really excited about. A lot of really interesting fights between some of the top up and coming prospects on the West Coast. I highly recommend you guys check this out. It is going to be streaming on UFC Fight Pass, so make sure you check that out. And if you're in the Southern California area, why not just go to the fight? I am going to go ahead and in the description for this video include all of the information on how to attend or watch this event. Make sure you guys check it out. One of the things that is interesting about this space is there is such a wide range of content. You go on YouTube, you key in MMA interview, or you go on Instagram and you can see a treasure trove of just MMA content that you could watch until your eyes freaking rot out of your skull. There's so much content, and it's being pumped out week over week over week. And one of the things that's interesting about it is, and again, maybe it's just this is Tyler speaking. I'm kind of a prick sometimes. I get really bored. Like ADHD kicks in, and I'm like, I'm 3 minutes into this interview, and I am bored, and there's nothing in it for me. Like I'm not feeling engaged. I don't feel like I'm missing anything if I click next. And so I wanted to ask you, Dylan, in your mind, what is the key to retaining your audience? What is key to putting out a compelling story, particularly about somebody who may be well known? So, for example, you interviewed Stotts not that long ago. I saw that. A lot of other people interview him too. So, what's a challenge for interviewing somebody like that, knowing that there might be a dozen other interviews he's going to do? What is your formula, or what are some of the things that you do to try to tell a compelling story about a well-known person?
I would say the biggest key, and especially for that interview, but all interviews for me, is humor. Incorporating humor any way I can. If you watch that interview with Rafian, I believe it was 22 minutes long. We were probably laughing for 10 of those 22 minutes, just about random stuff, just about this and that, whatever it may be. I think that keeps the audience engaged and just having a conversation. Like a lot of these interviews that I see, not to really shit on anyone, of course I wouldn't name anybody, but it just seems like, all right, question one, they give a really good answer. And then it's just question two, question three, question four. And it's not really a conversation. It doesn't feel smooth, doesn't feel fluid. I've been fortunate enough to be told by some fighters, like, the word I always get is smooth. Like, that was smooth. That was smooth. I love when people tell me that, because that's what I aim for. I aim for it to be a conversation between two guys, whether we know each other or we don't, and it just happens to be on camera. It's a conversation. It's just talking to someone like you would on the street, just happens to be on camera. All these guys are humans. All of us are humans. And a lot of these interviewers, they talk to these fighters like either they're fanboying, which nobody really is interested in seeing, or they're just like nervous, revered because they're such a, they have a high stats, they're, UFC fighter, Bellator fighter, whatever it may be. But talking to someone like they're a human being, talking to Rafian Stotts the same way you talk to an amateur that has an 0-0 record, talking to a Bellator ring girl the same way I would talk to Shane Burgos this week, just being yourself and having a natural conversation. I think it might be easier. It might be easier said than done, but I think that that's the key to like keeping your audience engaged. Just having fun, at the end of the day, and not just like, sometimes it feels like these, I've been told by fighters, sometimes they feel like their interviews are like interrogations. Like the journalists are trying to get stuff out of them, pull quotes, even maybe catch them slipping and catch them saying something they maybe shouldn't, so they can get some clicks on a story. I've never done anything like that. I never will do anything like that. And I'm just here to have fun and use my whatever small platform I have to help grow the sport and help tell each fighter's story in the little way that I can.
Tell me a little bit about like who you are as a person and kind of like what got you interested in getting into journalism in the first place. Not so much MMA, but just journalism as a whole. I asked that question because if you look at, you're a student, you probably already know this answer. Look at any occupational survey out there about the 10 worst jobs you could have in America. Journalism is on that top 10 list. So I have to ask you, like, that already. I'm not telling you something you don't already know, but like, what drove you into this field? Tell me a little bit about like what piqued your interest in all of this.
Real quick, I want to say, like, as you just mentioned, it's on that top 10 list, right, of like worst jobs. And not only that, but people hate the media. A lot of people, fighters, athletes, even regular people, they hate the media, they hate journalists. So I'm kind of trying to be someone that helps buck that trend a little bit and helps. There's some cool people in the media, right? There's some nice guys. What drew me to journalism, when I was like 5 years old, me and my dad every single day. I would ask him, I would play general manager. I loved baseball. I would tell him, he would wake me up in the morning and I would say, Dad, would you trade Albert Pujols for Alex Rodriguez? Would you do this, do that? So I was always so in tune with sports. Sports was always my passion. So when I was like literally like 9 years old, I decided I want to be a sports journalist. Like 8, 7, 8, 9 years old. It was like elementary school. And then when I was 12, I decided that I wanted to come to, I'm a student right now at Arizona State. I'm graduating in 3 weeks, thank God, for sports journalism. My mom went to ASU, my uncle, my aunt. So it's kind of in the family. We're all from New York, but we go to ASU and then we never go back to Arizona. We come back to New York and we live there forever. So I don't know if that's what I'll do, but yeah, so ASU, my mom went there and it had a top 5 sports journalism program in the country. So when I was 12 years old, I was like, that's where I'm going. And I knew I'd get in. It isn't that hard of a school to get into. So I kind of slacked in high school. I kind of did some things I probably shouldn't have been doing. My grades are awful, but I found my way to ASU. And through 2 years, I had near a 4.0 GPA. I really found what I loved. And when I'm passionate about something and when I really like what I'm doing, no, nothing's gonna stop me. Nothing's gonna get in my way. I'm gonna get it done. So like, yeah, I had like straight C's in high school. Go to college, sports journalism, I got straight A's. So it was a really big change for me. But yeah, again, to get back to it, I mean, you said journalism specifically, but MMA journalism, my inspiration to do MMA was I wanted to just grow the sport that I love. I love a lot of other sports too. I know more about baseball, basketball, football, soccer than I do MMA. I'm not gonna lie to you. But I really saw MMA as like, even though it seems big, it's not that it's a tiny sport compared to the other ones I just named. And I wanted to do anything I could to help grow the sport. And I feel that way with each article, each interview, each Instagram post. The whole main thing for me is growing the sport. It's not about growing the UFC. It's not about growing Rush MMA. It's not about growing any of these other things. It's about growing the sport that I love, which is mixed martial arts. So that was my inspiration to get into MMA journalism. For journalism, it was more like, to be completely honest, it was like I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wasn't good enough. I wanted to stay close to the game. I wanted to be at these events and talk to the athletes, and that's kind of what drew me to journalism in the first place.
What about when you're not doing interviews, when you're not behind the screen, when you're not covering an event and you're not, studying for a test? Well, hey, well, take all that back. Congratulations on graduating here in
Thank you.
3 weeks. That's a big
I
deal.
was waiting for that. I was like, come on.
Yeah, I know, I know. I'm fucking terrible. Terrible, Tyler. Terrible. Talk to me, like, what are some of the things that you do that don't have anything to do with this whole space? Like, do you have any hobbies? Do you have any interests that have nothing to do with sports or interviewing people?
Well, is chess a sport? Some people say it is.
Why
Some,
not?
yeah.
It's a mental sport. How about that?
I definitely play a couple hours of chess a day, which nobody knows. Whether it be on my phone or with a few friends in person. I got a chess set right here. I love chess. I always have. I retired from the game on top. I'll let you in on a little secret. I did one chess tournament in my life. It was fifth grade. I went undefeated. I got this huge trophy. It's still the biggest trophy I have in my room back home in New York. And I never did another tournament again or competed again. But I'm proud to say I'm a 1,300 rated player on chess.com. It's taken a long time to get to that. I love chess. I love playing pool. Uh, I love, as you can see, I just love people. I love talking to people. That's what drew me to interviews in the first place. So like just hanging out with people. I'm not the huge biggest party guy, like club guy, but like just going to a bar, talking to strangers, talking to people on the street. I'm close to the Arizona State campus. Just like, I'm low key an introvert. Like I low key am shy around people when I don't know them, but like sometimes, a lot of times, it's just like it for me. It's not that hard to have a conversation with anybody. I talk to homeless people. Say this real quick. I was on the way to Vegas 2 days ago for PFL 3. I saw a homeless dude sitting outside a gas station, and I've never done this before. I'm not gonna act like I've done this a million times. This is the only time I ever did this. But I told him I'll buy you a beer. I'll trade you a beer for your life story. So I went in there and bought him like a 24-ounce can of Coors Light. Came out, gave it to him. He was so grateful. He was so excited, and he told me like about his life. It was only like 5 minutes, but like he just told me about stuff, and it was really cool for me. And I love doing stuff like that, just like talking to people, learning about people. And that's probably one of my biggest, I would say, passions outside of this, even though it is part of this as well. So,
Fun
yeah.
fact about me, I played chess with Christian Natividad from LFA
I know Christian.
on chess.com, and he whipped my ass. So there you
Damn,
go.
I got to play him.
Yeah, play him. He's really good, by the way.
He's out here. He's in at fight ready.
There you go. Hit him up. There you go. bringing people together. That's what I do in my mom's basement. Dylan, I wanted to ask you a series of questions, very important questions, and you don't have to study too much. Just tell me what your answer is, true or false. I want to get your reaction to them. And I'm going to start right away. Henry Cejudo will be the new bantamweight champion in 2023. True or false?
False.
A fighter from the PFL Challenger Series will contend in a title fight in 2023.
True.
Francis Ngannou will sign with Bellator.
False.
Jamal Hill will be the light heavyweight champion a year from now.
False.
Sean O'Malley will get another face tattoo in 2023.
True.
Jake Paul will beat Nate Diaz.
True.
Leon Edwards will knock out Colby Covington.
False.
Colby Covington is more cringe than Tito Ortiz.
False. Not to say that he isn't cringe.
Aaron Blanchfield will be the flyweight champion in 2024.
True.
Scott Coker would power slap the shit out of Dana White in a contest like that.
True.
There we go. I hope, you know what? All of those questions I think are just absolutely critical. And the future of your journalism career will depend on how well you predict all of those, sir. So, no pressure. Let's hope you get them right. And then when I bring you back on my show, we're going to revisit all of these things I just asked you, and we'll see what your winning percentage was. And, hopefully you did well, but that was your test. We'll see how close you got. Dylan, I wanted to give you the last word. I appreciate you spending some of your afternoon with me. So if there's anyone that you'd like to thank or anyone you'd like to shout out before I let you go, floor's yours, sir.
I'll do a couple shout outs because I've never done this. I'm not prepared for this, but shout out Eddie Law from Cageside Press. He's been one of the greatest, if not the greatest mentor to me since I started. When I first created the Instagram account, I was in Phoenix, and luckily enough, Bellator had an event 4 days later at the Footprint Center, the Suns Arena in Phoenix. It was like, as fate would have it, I did that event and I loved it, and the rest is history. But at that event, I met Eddie Law, and he took me under his wing throughout the event and in the weeks going forward and the months going forward, and just really helped me through all this, navigating a bunch of different aspects of this game. He helps me still today. He's my boss. He's the guy that helps me with putting out all my interviews and whatnot. So definitely a big shout out to him. Shout out to my parents, my friends, all my supporters. Like I've gotten there are some haters, as you mentioned, but I've been blessed to get so much support, whether it be fighters, media people, friends, family, this, that, and third. It's just, I've never felt so much love in my life than I do now and than I did before I started doing this. So thank you to everybody. And then a little message to my fellow journalists out there. Keep grinding, man. We're going to help build this sport together. Whether you have 10 followers or a million, I don't care. Reach out whenever. I would love to help in any way, shape, or form that I can. If I have a good relationship with a fighter and you're interested in interviewing him, I would love to help set that up. I've done that a few times in recent weeks, which it's been great it's just so awesome. I'm so humbled and grateful to be in the position where I can do stuff like that. So yeah, let's keep growing the sport, baby. We want MMA to be the biggest sport in the world by the time we're off this planet. So
that's why you are the legend that is embroidered on your beanie. Thank you, Dylan. You're the man. I look forward to having you back very, very soon.
thank you, brother.